Before we begin, if you're serious about real wartime history and practical survival knowledge that goes beyond surface-level documentaries, subscribe to this channel, comment with your thoughts as we go, and share this video with someone who values historical truth. What you're about to hear isn't trivia. It's hard-earned knowledge, paid for in blood, cold, hunger, and endurance. For the next minute, I want you to forget Hollywood, forget simplified war stories, and focus on the lived reality of soldiers who had to survive not just combat, but exposure, starvation, disease, and isolation. World War II was not only a test of weapons and tactics. It was a brutal experiment in human survival under conditions most people today would not last a week in. Entire units disappeared not because they were defeated in battle, but because they failed to adapt. The tricks you're about to hear were so effective that many were deliberately restricted, classified, or quietly passed down only through experience. These methods saved lives when supply lines failed and command structures collapsed. And the reason they still matter today is simple. Human biology has not changed. Cold still kills. Hunger still weakens. Fatigue still breaks people. What you're learning here is not nostalgia. It is timeless survival knowledge. Now, let's get into it. Using layered insulation instead of thick clothing kept soldiers alive in extreme cold. One of the most misunderstood lessons of World War II survival was that bulk kills faster than cold. Soldiers on the Eastern Front quickly learned that a single thick coat trapped sweat, and sweat froze. Veterans were taught to wear multiple thin layers that could be adjusted constantly. Wool was preferred not because it was warm, but because it retained insulation when wet. In practice, soldiers learned to strip layers during movement and add them immediately when stopping. This prevented hypothermia far more effectively than heavy garments. Today, this principle applies directly to winter survival, mountaineering, and even disaster preparedness. If you move and sweat, you must vent heat immediately, or the cold will take you later when you stop. Sleeping above ground prevented death by heat loss. You know, many soldiers instinctively slept directly on the ground, which was actually a fatal mistake. Ground contact drains body heat faster than air exposure. During World War II, troops learned to sleep on branches, backpacks, empty ammo crates, or even rolled uniforms to create an insulating barrier. In forests, soldiers cut pine boughs and stacked them thickly beneath their bodies. This single adjustment dramatically reduced cold-related deaths. And in modern survival scenarios, the same rule applies. If you're stranded outdoors, insulating yourself from the ground matters more than how warm your blanket is. Silent water purification saved units behind enemy lines. Boiling water creates smoke and light, which could expose positions. So soldiers instead use cloth filtration combined with improvised chemical methods. Some units carried iodine or used small amounts of alcohol-based solutions scavenged from medical supplies. Others let sediment settle and drank only the upper layer, reducing pathogen load. While not perfect, it prevented dysentery and dehydration. The practical lesson today is redundancy. You don't rely on just one method. You filter, then chemically treat if possible, and you never, ever drink untreated water unless death is the alternative. Eating unconventional calories prevented starvation. Soldiers were taught that survival food was not about taste, but about energy density. Tree bark inner layers, roasted acorns, animal fat scraps, and even softened leather provided calories when rations ran out. In siege conditions, soldiers boiled bones over and over to extract fat and minerals. The key lesson was knowing what provided usable energy versus what simply filled the stomach. Modern survivalists can apply this by learning calorie prioritization. Fat and carbohydrates keep you alive. Protein alone does not. You know, improvised foot care prevented trench foot and, well, even amputations. Foot injuries actually crippled more armies than bullets ever did. Soldiers learned to dry their feet constantly, rotate socks even if they were dirty, and massage circulation back into numb extremities. Grease, animal fat, or even oil was applied as a moisture barrier. In practice, a soldier would stop mid-march to air his feet, despite orders to move quickly, because veterans knew losing your feet really meant losing your life. Even today, long-distance hikers and soldiers still follow these exact principles because, well, human feet remain vulnerable under sustained stress. Camouflage through disruption, not just concealment, kept soldiers hidden. WWII soldiers learned that blending perfectly into terrain was actually less effective than breaking up recognizable human outlines. Mud, foliage, irregular shapes, and asymmetry were always prioritized. Helmets were disguised not to match color, but to destroy the silhouette. This principle is still taught today. In real-world concealment, shape matters more than color. A human outline triggers detection faster than movement or shade. Noise discipline was enforced even in survival routines. Small sounds carry far in quiet environments. Soldiers were trained to wrap metal gear in cloth, avoid snapping twigs, and control breathing during night movement. Survival wasn't just about staying warm or fed, but staying unheard. In practical terms, this applies to modern wilderness movement, evasion scenarios, and even urban survival during unrest. Silence buys time, and time buys options. Mental discipline was treated as a survival skill. Perhaps the most powerful and honestly least discussed survival trick was psychological control. Soldiers were taught to break time into small segments, focus on immediate tasks, and suppress panic through routine. Eating, cleaning weapons, or checking gear created normalcy in chaos. This mental structure kept people functional when others collapsed. Today, this lesson applies to any crisis. Control your mind and your body follows. World War II survival was not accidental. It was learned, refined, and enforced through brutal necessity. These tricks were powerful because they worked, and they remain powerful because the conditions they address still exist. If this guide added something new to your understanding, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment sharing which lesson surprised you most, and share this with someone who takes history and survival seriously. This knowledge deserves to be preserved, not forgotten.